What you focus on is who you become. So I tell myself that all the time because just like everybody else, one, I have hardcore ADHD if that's not incredibly obvious. And two, I find myself just like everybody else. My mind will start spinning off on things that are just not important. And I just snap back to you and say, hey, man, what you focus on is who you become. You don't want to be that person. Your mind's going there, but that's not who you are. Bring it back. Okay.
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to real estate, insurance, and everything in between. Join us as we take you along our own brokerage building journeys with additional wisdom from our network of business experts. Welcome to Bricks and Risk. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Bricks and Risk. I'm Tim Garrity.
And I'm Sean Mooney.
And today, Sean, we have an awesome guest on. We have Ryan Hanley, CEO and founder of Finding Peak. How you doing today, Ryan?
Oh, it's awesome to be here, dudes. I'm looking forward to this.
Thanks for coming on board.
Likewise. So brief background on Ryan. So Ryan's an executive, an entrepreneur, a speaker, author, and a podcaster. He's the founder of Finding Peak, a premier insurance growth coaching firm and media company. Ryan has more than 18 years of experience in insurance across traditional and digital agencies, lead generation, media, association, and insure tech enterprises. And some of the backstory I have on you, Ryan, because I'm a guy who likes to do a little research, pull things up. So
yeah, you find some dirt?
Nah, no dirt. These are more like facts, but we can get into that. So University of Rochester, 2003. So just a couple years after Sean and I. BA in mathematics, fraternity of Psi Upsilon. We were Fiji guys, if you're familiar with Phi Gamma Delta.
We did not have them, no.
Oh, so it's unfortunate. You were on the baseball team, captain. You're based out of Albany, New York. You know, you enjoy to read, write, box, ski, deadlift, and you appreciate spending good time with friends. So, so you've worn a lot of hats in the insurance industry. But it seems like you've always consulted and now you're doing full-time coaching. Why is coaching and consulting the lane where you seem to be most comfortable?
So one of the things that has taken me a long time to understand is where I find the most satisfaction in my professional life. And some of this is just, I did not grow up with professional parents. I had great parents, but one was a mechanic on the railroad and the other was a receptionist. And like entrepreneurialism, being a boss, being a leader, like none of that stuff was taught to me. It just wasn't in the nature of our family. You just kind of get a job. And actually the day I came home, and my parents were divorced, but the day I came home and was like, I'm going to go to college. Mom was like, great. You know what I mean? It was like no expectation. There was no,
like,
you know what I mean? There was none of that. It was just, I mean, it was just when I decided to do it, fine. Okay. If I had said, hey, I'm going to go become a mechanic or go do plumbing, they would have been fine with that too. It didn't matter to them. So all that being said, it took me a long time in being surrounded by great and finding great mentors and experiences. And I've held a ton of different positions, and it just took me a long time to figure out where I found satisfaction. And the through line in all my work in regards to when I felt the most motivated and satisfied was around helping other people find success. I derive almost no satisfaction in my own success. It just doesn't matter to me. What I love is watching the light bulb come on for other people. And I think it's hard for some people to see that because I am so public I do a lot of social media stuff. I've had a podcast since 2012. I've done more than 300 paid keynote speeches. I've done countless workshops and unpaid gigs, and I've done all this stuff. None of it is in service of my own success. If it was, I'd probably be in a different place. I probably have much more personal success if I only thought about myself. And when I look back and I think like, well, why didn't that opportunity didn't go exactly the way I want? A lot of times it's because I simply wasn't selfish enough. Like you do have to have a level of selfishness to make the decisions necessary to box other people out, to do things, to get to a certain level. You just have to be. And I've always been more of the type who loved watching others grow in their career. We pioneered something at I started a digital agency in 2020 called Rogue Risk. I exited from it back in October of this year. We started something called the No Ceiling Insurance Career. And the whole idea was building a career path. And you could do this in any industry, just insurance was ours. You could do this in real estate too, I'm sure. I wanted to create a path where people could start with us unlicensed, and in less than 7 years, they could own their own agency. Their premium, their business may be aggregated through us, so we could still reap a monetary benefit for having done this for them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was their business, their name, their agency, their location. Like, this was something that they could grow and sell, and they would have this thing. So they would go from no license, kid, gal or guy, and in 7 years, they could have their own shingle and be rocking and rolling. And that was the goal for our agency. Unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of things that happened, and don't sell to a PE company if you have big dreams is probably one of those things. But
advice,
that it didn't actually come to fruition, but we were on the path. I actually had one guy who was, essentially 2 years on track from having that goal. So once I figured out that's that very long way, finish up. Once I figured out that I derive the most satisfaction from helping others, coaching, consulting, et cetera, became the natural path. And that's obviously where we are today.
Very cool.
With Rogue Risk, you talked about a little bit with the agency, and I saw some numbers that you were posting online talking about the growth specifically in that last year. I think it was like 12 months, 15 months.
Yeah.
And it sounded like you just started to really kind of get things rocking and rolling, and things were locked in. What 2 or 3 things, Ryan, were you doing that kind of made all of the pieces fit that allowed you to kind of hit that growth in the way that you're doing?
Yes. So one, I wish I could tell you the exact numbers, but unfortunately, because of contracts, I cannot. But however, I can say, and I'm not saying this just because, some people will be like, wow, that's bullshit. We probably would have been easily one of the top 5 fastest growing small commercial agencies in the entire country. The numbers we were putting on the board were out of this world.
Yep.
More than I had even expected.
Yep.
Unfortunately, just the clock ran out, was really just the way things happened. But that being said, there were 3 particular items that I think separated us from everyone else. First and foremost, we built a inbound lead engine that was essentially the foundation for our business. So the way I think about, so I tend to talk a lot about inbound, not because I think inbound is the only thing that businesses should be doing. And this goes for really any business. This is not just particular insurance, because just so everyone knows, I had a 9-month stint as the CEO of a 6-location fitness franchise in between being the chief marketing officer of a national insurtech and starting my agency.
Oh. And
I did that mostly because I had a few missteps in insurance, and I was worried that maybe insurance was the problem. It's not. Douchebags are. But, so I've repeated this inside the fitness space as well. So it's battle tested both in insurance.
So it transcends just
yes.
In
and
so this is basically.
Are you referring to inbound as like SEO, like drawing people to your website, contact forms?
That's some of it.
Okay.
That's some of it. But so basically, the way I look at it is you have all these tools in your tool belt, and you can't just rely on one. Some people, I've had a bunch of guests on my own podcast who are all about outbound cold call prospecting. And I'm like, I have no problem with outbound cold call prospecting. But if it's the only thing you do, you're setting your business up for failure, because some days it's going to work. Some days it's not going to work. The SEC could change the phone call guidelines, and you could now have the same rules for calling businesses that you have for calling people at home personal lines,
and they just did it with texting.
Yes. And now your whole outbound operation changes and you're screwed. So I'm all about diversifying where leads come from. So we had 2 sides to our business. One was our inbound, and we considered that our foundational layer. We over leveraged YouTube. So all I did all day long in a templated format, and you can go check it out because I think the YouTube channel is still up if you go to Roger's YouTube channel, is I just answered questions every single day, all day long. Just, what is this? How does this work? What is the best this? What is the cost of this? What should you choose if this? How do you break down the 7 coverages for a plumbing business? What is the best insurance company for bakeries, you know, just over and over and over and over again. We had 525 videos, I think, on our YouTube channel. And we did almost 400,000 views on our YouTube channel the 365 days before I exited. And views obviously don't turn into revenue, but we were generating between 10 and 13 qualified leads a day just from the YouTube channel a day.
Wow. So people would literally like reach out to you and be like, hey, I saw your video, or hey, like, you know, I got your email address through YouTube. And
all day long. So we had a whole system, and some of this is what I coach and shit, but I'm happy to share with you guys. So basically, every video was exactly the same. So it was templatized. You know, I'd give them the hook. Today I'm going to share with you the 5 best insurance companies for a plumbing contractor in New York. Okay. Then it would be a little logo zip. Hi, my name is Ryan Hanley. I'm the founder and CEO of Rogue Risk, where we do insurance differently, specifically by giving you knowledge and information to make the right insurance decision. Now, when it comes to plumbing insurance, there are 5 companies that we highly recommend. They're not the only companies, but they're the 5 we recommend. We're going to break them down. Here they are. Get to the end, and I'd say, if this is the kind of relationship that you'd like to have with your insurance professional, we'd love to work with you. We're in all 50 states, which we were. It doesn't mean you have to be, but we were. So we can come to you wherever you are. And you can get a hold of us either by clicking a link that you'll find somewhere around this video, calling the phone number you see on the screen right now, or emailing us at gorogue@roguerisk.com. And all day long, people would watch those videos and reach out to us.
That's super impressive.
Yeah. So then we took that content, we repurposed it onto our website. So we would just change the text around the video so that it wasn't exactly the same as the YouTube video. So now I'd have 2 pieces of content ranking for that keyword. And then we would take and we would repurpose that content into native social video, both in the form of reels and long form videos that then would go out and we would target specific markets with that. So if I created one video, we had a system that over the next month, we'd get that one video chopped up into like 7 to 10 different pieces of content that would be posted. And then I just did that all day, every day. Wow. And so that built our foundational layer. Once we had that foundational layer come in, now we have breathing space, right? If you're a business owner, what's the thing that causes you the most stress? Like, where's my next lead coming from?
Sales, yeah.
Right? So once I knew every day we had 8 to 10 to 12 leads coming in, and I had a team that could handle them and close them, now I could go out and do 2 things. I hired 2 rainmakers to do outside, like larger, small, middle market cold calling in target markets that we wanted to grow in, right? So now those big hits aren't what pay for our month. They're what make our month spectacular, right? Wow. So that was a big shift for us was, every month I could count on X amount of premium because I just knew I had these leads coming in. I knew what the close ratio of the team was. And I trained this woman who's tremendous to teach our system, which we called the one call close system, which we can talk about too, teach them how to close inbound leads because it's a different way of closing. So we had a separate team closing inbound leads. The psychology that closes an inbound lead is not the psychology that goes out and hunts and kills business. Those are 2 completely different people. And if you try to switch those, you're going to think that person's a dummy, and they're not. They're just in the wrong seat. So we had this team writing inbound, building in a base layer of revenue or base layer of sales every month. Then I went out and rainmaked larger referral deals. So we found platforms or partnerships that wanted to refer business by monetizing their client base through insurance. And then I had these 2 rainmakers going after bigger accounts. And that's how we got the big, huge jumps on top of the base layer.
Wow. All right. So here's a question. This is probably more basic, and, you know, I don't do insurance. So again, please,
it's okay.
Please forgive me. But all right. So you setting all that up. So you doing the 525 videos and just chopping this up into different content and putting these at different places. Like, what kind of capital and time did you have to spend to, one, just get set up to do all that, and then have the people in place to service it? Because again, like, let's say you did 10 videos and they're highly effective and you're getting decent amount of leads and they're coming from all over the place, I'm assuming. Like, how did you find the right team to do that? And where did you have the capital to make it happen?
So I bootstrapped it for the first 2 years. At the 2-year mark, I realized that if I really wanted to grow fast, I needed capital. So I went out and I did a bunch of meetings for investors. I'll be very candid with you guys. I was not taking a salary, and that was part of the plan with my wife at the time for the first 3 years. So what I told her is, I worked a couple side jobs, like consulting shit. So I had consulting gigs on the side always, but they were small. I said, I'm going to do those and I'm going to grow this agency. And if you can stomach, this is the deal with she's not my ex-wife. Maybe this is why she's my ex-wife. Who knows? If you can stomach 3 years of me not making a salary, I promise you in 7 years, I'll have an agency worth 8 figures. So that was the deal that I made her. And we were on pace to do that. And somewhere in there, she decided that she wasn't living her best life and I was the problem. And that blew up. When that blew up in my face, I had to make, unfortunately, some moves to just live life because obviously I wasn't making a salary at the time and I had this agency. So I switched from looking for investment capital and actually had the opportunity to be purchased by SIA, which is a large national aggregator. I don't know if there's an equivalent in the real estate space, but basically think of it like a quasi franchise, not a franchise, but a quasi franchise. They basically give access to products in exchange for taking a cut of the revenue you make through those products. And it's a fairly wide use. There's nothing wrong with the model. You know, I'm not knocking
like
anybody.
A conduit, so all the businesses goes through.
It's almost kind of like in real estate, not to shift, but like there's a company called Anywhere is the big company. Used to be called Realogy. They own Caldwell Banker. They own Better Homes and Gardens, Century 21. Like they own those brands, and they're kind of like the parent company, like feeding different tech, support, knowledge, networking, and then they take a fee.
Yeah, essentially. So they purchased us out. They offered to purchase us in full, and I saw that. So I did it for 2 reasons. One, I didn't need the capital, but what I really wanted was they gave me the 4th stage of the no ceiling insurance career. So I could get somebody from unlicensed to licensed. I could get somebody from small business to outbound hunter killer. But what I didn't have was the facility for them to launch their own agency and aggregate their products up through us so that we were essentially getting a monetary benefit for essentially letting this person buy their book out and launch their own agency that they own. Yeah.
So they
provided me.
So it's like SIAA, subcode road, subcode new agent.
Yes. We would essentially become like a digital master agency. That was the plan. And I was like, okay. I didn't really want to sell the whole thing. However, they did seem like good people. And I do think they are, right? And
they're one of the largest too, nationally, right?
Yeah, and they gave us this facility to do this no ceiling insurance career, and I was like, "This is a match made in heaven." So I did that. I told them that I needed about $1.5 million to get to where I wanted to be, and we unfortunately, because of market conditions, we didn't end up get to finalize it in terms of finalize the vision. We grew for 17 months. We grew at incredible rate. We're on pace to turn profitable inside of a year. And
that's crazy.
Unfortunately, market conditions because of the economy and some downward pressure on contingencies without they made money. They had to cut a large portion of their portfolio, and we were one of them. So what we did was we negotiated an early exit and kind of sold that book back into their larger entity, and we just sunsetted the brand. So I didn't want what I learned there to die with that organization, which is why, I'm doing the coaching now.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Dude, that's super impressive.
It is and it isn't. I wish there is.
It's just that time piece that you just a little more time and this thing would have been.
Yes. Dude, you know what? You know how you read these stories about how you'll read like something about like a battle in World War II where if some random freaking guy doesn't see some random tank gleam off some hill as he's turning for breakfast, and all of a sudden that turns the battle. You know what I mean? You're like,
I'm telling you, I watched it the other night. It was Washington in one of the battles. I think it was Pennsylvania or Virginia, and they literally were going to get smoked.
Yes.
And the fog rolled in and gave them cover. And so that Washington could move his men out of position, and it was like the chances of that singular event happening was like 1 in a bazillion. It happened, and it changed the whole course of the war.
Yeah, basically. So basically, I know the story you're talking about. I'm pretty sure it was the Delaware River when he was sitting there. the Brits were ready to come stomp them.
Yep.
But as you said, as Sean said, this fog rolls in, and the commander for the British go, let's sit on it overnight, and we'll get them in the morning when the fog goes away.
Yep.
And Washington just he decided to move the army in that time. So when the fog cleared, they weren't there. If they're there, the British go across the river, stomp them, revolution over.
Yep.
So like, and my point in saying that is like, a lesson that I learned out of this is, one, the idea was great. I have no problem with SIA. They made all the decisions that they needed to make it their time for their business. It is what it is. Obviously I wish it didn't happen the way it did, but it did. But what I learned is we can't, and this goes for entrepreneurs who are maybe starting, you can't get determined or discouraged by these kind of things, because sometimes it's just simply timing, right? Like I sell this business 6 months earlier and we hit our target 6 months earlier, not a problem, right? Yep. We decide to do a couple things differently, and maybe one deal hits 3 months earlier than it does, and we're in a position where this doesn't happen. So there's all these little timing issues that, I believe we did everything we could, everything right, and I think our numbers stood for themselves if we could make them public, which we can't. However, I'm not discouraged by it, because you learn something, and you learn that sometimes timing just happens, and you just keep going forward.
Yeah, there's so me personally, there's two major things that I believe in as not only a human being but also as a business person that kind of were brought to light through that. One is that you have to fail in order to succeed. That's number one. And failure is going to happen in all sorts of different ways. Not your fault. Maybe it was your fault. Maybe it was 50-50, but either way it happened. And then that allowed you to kind of either pivot, learn, restructure. And then that is what allows you to take it up to another level or a different channel. And that also, another thing, me personally, is that things happen for a reason. Like there's a reason that fog came in, and there's a reason the market shifted when it did for you. Cause like you said, woulda, coulda, shoulda, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe we would have had enough footing and enough profit, but it's like, but it did. So, and when it did, look at you now. I mean, you're doing some amazing stuff. I mean, you're coaching people, you're consulting people, you have your own brand. It's not reliant on 10 to 12 leads through YouTube a day. Again, I run a brokerage too. I have 30 agents. We do good volume. I still practice. And we're more or less like, we teach to fish and don't give fish. So we're different than the company you had. It's like, I'm telling people what rod is the right size for them, like what kind of bait they should be using and where to go put their rods. Whereas, maybe your model was different. You're like, hey, like I'm getting 8 to 12 fish a day. I want all of you to eat, and I got just enough food for all of you. So as long as you're ready to eat, like I got plenty of food. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, dude, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I'll tell, this is the other thing I'll say, like, so Rogan's, that was my baby. I had this dream. I move into this next thing. I've received and I'm counting, more than 36 messages of like, oh, what'd you do? Run it into a mountain or commit fraud? Yeah, sure. Or like, oh, I guess inbound doesn't work as well as you think. Now trust me, all those motherfuckers have targets on their back now, because I know all of you, and I'm not going to forget who you are. And when I get a chance, I'm going to shove it right down your throat. Yeah. But here's the thing, like when you have these mistakes, when things happen, like you can't give a shit what people think. It doesn't mean like, so this is, I think, a nuanced argument that is important for entrepreneurs. Like when you're pushing hard, when you're making moves, when you're extending yourself, what you have to do big things, you have to extend yourself out past where everyone else is willing to go, which means people are going to question you. People are not going to agree with you. People are going to stop having faith in you, right? It's going to happen. But if you believe in what you're doing, and you're doing it on a bedrock of real decisions, right? You're doing that. You're keeping track of what you're doing. You're tracking your success. You're thinking through. You're building off of best practices. You're not just shooting from the hip. You're not coming in naive, right? Then you cannot let what anyone says about decisions you made or opportunities stop you from going to the next thing. Because to your point of things happen for a reason, here we are. It's been 3 months really since the shutdown. I have a couple small clients, which I'm happy about, but in the pipeline, I have 3 opportunities to work with companies on a fractional basis that are all incredibly exciting that I hope we can put them all together. And like, if I'm waking up every day and I'm working on these 3 companies every day, and like, these are my clients, I'm in a really good spot, very happy, very satisfied, and like really challenged. And those are things I wouldn't have an opportunity to work on and expand my game if I'm just working on Rogue. Now, would I probably have rather continue to grow that business for a while? Sure. But that's not a reality. So you always, as long as you keep your head up, you don't listen to people, and you believe in the shit that you're doing. Like I have faith over fear tattooed on my forearm. I look at it every single day. It's right. It's like my kids' birthdays and faith over fear on my forearm. Look at it every day. And like, I just remind myself that like, if you're doing it for the right reasons and you believe that, then the universe, God, whatever you believe in, is going to put more opportunities in front of you. It's absolutely going to happen. And I don't mean that in like a foo-foo, ethereal, like kumbaya kind of way. I mean, it's literally going to happen that the universe puts more opportunities in front of you.
Let me share this. On the way over, I was thinking, I was listening to a couple of things, and I got into this idea of like comments and feedback, because I was thinking about our podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, for some reason, I thought, I can't wait to the point, because obviously people are going to listen to this, and I'm thinking, people are going to think, well, you're not a pro. What do you know about this or that?
You are a pro.
And I was thinking, like, I can't wait till those comments come in, because I feel like you kind of have arrived when you get that sort of trashing. Like for you, is like, if you were not getting those comments and people disagreeing with you, it's kind of like you kind of haven't found your footing, and you kind of haven't arrived. And I was just thinking to myself, it's going to be a good thing when people start questioning you or your.
So this is my take on this, is that you are not pushing. If you are a growth focused person, this has to be what you want in life. Yep. Like I got buddies that work for the state. They'll make $85,000 for the rest of their life, but they'll never have to worry about not making $85,000 the rest of their life, right? So like, and that's what they want. Yep. And I'm that's awesome. That's their thing. It's just not the way that I'm built. Yep. But, and they think my life is crazy, which I completely also get. So here's my point. If you are a growth focused person, you need to maintain a 20% hater quotient. 20% of the people should disagree with the shit you're saying. So like, I'll tell you, there's a couple things that I've said recently, which have gotten this. One of those
I know where you're going with that one.
Is around carriers are not partners, they're suppliers, right? And that we need to change our mentality and how we view them. And I also think this goes the other way too. So if there's any carrier people listening, I'm not knocking carriers for this. I'm saying that we have a misalignment of lip service that's given between this idea of partnership between carriers and agents. And really, if we viewed it as a true distribution supplier mentality, then we could have real relationships and we could have real conversations about things. But what happens is, I may think you're doing something really crappy, Sean, but I'm not going to say it because you're my partner and I don't want you to get mad at me and I don't want you to like do something I don't like.
Sure.
And therefore, I never actually give you the feedback. You don't know that it's a problem. You never make any changes. And now none of us are happy. Here's another thing. Carriers can change your compensation at any given time. It happens all the time, right? They also can say, I'll write this, I'll write this, I'll write this. And then for some reason, just choose not to write one account that you know they write. Yep. That's not what a partner does, right? Yep. There's no joint equity in anything. It's not a partnership. It's a rev share deal. And from that standpoint, we need to not put our carriers on pedestals, and carriers need to not over-index on agencies in terms of being real partners, because an agency will flip on a carrier on a dime if someone else is charging lower rates or has more access to products. Yep. So like, it's not a real partnership. Okay. So I said that. And oh my God, you would thought that I had like just said that God had died.
Did it go over your 20% quotient?
Oh, yeah. At least 50% of people. At least 50% of people were like, you don't understand. And Tammy Sue at XYZ Mutual has been and I'm like, easy.
Yeah.
There's nuance in this. It doesn't mean you don't have a partner type relationship with a human inside that business.
Yep.
But what happens when Tammy gets a better job? Yep. What happens when Tammy's husband gets sick and she has to go on leave? What happens when Tammy decides she wants to retire? What do you do then? Does the carrier care? No. So I think we have these ideologies. And I think if we're pushing and trying to be better than the best practices and we're trying to be better than mediocre, we have to start thinking beyond what's always been thought. And as soon as you start to share those ideas, people are going to start to hate on you.
Oh, totally. Hey, everyone. This is Tim, your favorite Bricks and Risk co-host. But don't tell Sean. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'll get right back to it in a moment. Our audience grows through word of mouth. So if you would please take a moment of your time and give us a review on the platform you're on, that would be fantastic. Please also help spread the B&R word by sharing your favorite episode with a friend. We greatly appreciate your time and trust. Now, back to the show. All right, so here's one for you. So recently you posted that a 2x goal is easy.
Yep.
But that a 10x goal, you literally need to be singularly obsessive in order to achieve that. So can you just like speak a little bit more to your 10x philosophy and why you believe that to be true?
Yeah. So this is, I don't want to take any credit. This is actually a Dan Sullivan concept that a guy by the name of Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote a book on called 10x is easier than 2x. And I would highly recommend anybody in your audience who hasn't read this book, read it. It was my #1 read for 2023, hands down, #1 recommended book. So the concept is, let's say you came to me, you're an investor in my business, right? And you said, hey, we got to get on it. If I set a 2x goal, there's like 1,000 ways to get to 2x. You could hire a few more guys. You could go buy some more leads. You could do a little branding work. You could go find another referral partner. You could on and on and on and on and on. If you want to 10x your business, there's quite literally 1, maybe 2 ways to do that. That's it. And by thinking 10x, and this is obviously Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy's framing, is that by thinking about a 10x goal, what it does is it laser focuses you on the thing that you need to do to grow your business that big. And then let's say you hit 80% of that goal. You just 8x'd your business versus 2x. Let's say you hit 80% of a 2x goal. That's like negligible growth. Yep. So his point that he makes over and over again, and again, the way that Benjamin Hardy writes, I find very easy to consume, but yet still easy to understand, or still tons of value despite being easy to consume, is we need to think in terms of what's the one thing that we need to do over and over and over again every day. Like in your business, and I don't know real estate that well, although one of my good buddies owns a real estate firm, right? In your business, it might be just asking for referrals from all my clients. Like, are you calling 5 people who you've done deals with and asking them, who do you know in your network, right? Or maybe it's you're doing real estate and it's just hitting the freaking local county records, finding out who owns buildings and calling business owners all day and saying, hey man, the market's bam, we could probably get you this amount. But are you interested in selling? Like yeah. I'd love to be your guy. Here's my marketing program. Like maybe that's your thing. Whatever your thing is that you know can get you to 10x the results, do that every single day. Do nothing else, because distraction is what kills our success, not our ability to find opportunities.
Wow. Dude, that's phenomenal. And yeah, so interestingly, like in my business, and Sean's business is fairly similar too. We're very big on relationships, and we do relationship marketing in a way that is literally like, trying to think of it as like touch points, leading with value, like finding ways to connect with your network to let them know you're an expert, you're a leader, you care about them, like client events, like all that stuff. And it's funny, like this is what I did. So my first 5 years in real estate, this is what I did. I was literally just out hustling 60, 70 hours a week, like networking, throwing stuff on the wall, see what sticks. But the one thing I did that always created business for me was a monthly email newsletter. Mm-hmm. And for me, it wasn't because I just sent an email to everyone once a month with some kind of message. It was like how I did it, like who I sent it to. Like it revolved around the content. So like fast forward now, 10 years later, now I have 30 agents under me. What do? I create that newsletter for the entire company. And then I tell all the agents, all you gotta do is put your contacts into our system, and it's gonna go to 300 people, 2,000 people, 5,000 people. And the content is airtight because I've been working on that content for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the foundation of what I do. But on top of that, you got to do these 20 other things that are really going to make it stick. And what's interesting is that 8 out of 10 agents are like, that sounds too simple. And like, you're out of your mind. Why would that work? I was like, well, I started from the bottom when I was 30. Now I'm 44 and I have a brokerage. Most people don't do that. And it's all based on this philosophy. So you're either into that or you're part of the 80%. You're like, no, I want the big shop stuff.
I'm going to put this on the table. I'm going to go out and purchase 30 copies of Content Warfare. And we're going to give it to your agents. Talk about content warfare. How that could be applicable, even in today's day, even in 2024, about, let's just lay it out as a real estate agent and how they can use that, utilize the tools. And
so that book is a little dated, just so we know. However, the philosophical ideas inside of there, if you take away the tactical stuff. So I wrote a book in 2015 called Content Warfare. There was actually a time when my podcast was just focused on content marketing. This is back in the day. I had the 8th largest business podcast in the world. I was doing 47,000 downloads a month at a time. Now that number today is nothing. But back in 2013, back in 2013, that was enormous. I have a screenshot where I'm number 8 and Gary Vaynerchuk is number 11.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's badass.
It's pretty cool. So unfortunately, when I took the job with trustedchoice.com, because corporate bureaucracies, they forced me to close it and turn it off. I did not realize if I were a smart human being, I would have told them to go fly a kite and kept the podcast, because that would be worth way more today. But at the time I didn't understand, like, podcasts didn't have the value back then that they have
so
today.
early.
Yeah. That all being said, I wrote a book on really what I had learned through interviewing about 400 of the world's best content and digital marketers, and it's called Content Warfare. It is dated in the platforms. However, the topics in there resonate purely. And here's the big ideas, because I still do this today. I mean, all I've done is really re-rack these same strategies over and over again, and it's what you're doing with your newsletter. All people need to know is that you give a shit.
Right. That's
all they need to know is, do you know more than me? And do you give a shit about me? And that's all content marketing is at its core. It's just those two things. They're validating that you are an expert in the thing you say you're an expert in, and that you actually care about their success, because people can smell in authenticity. So if you can put those two things out in the world, then the people who believe what you believe will choose to hang out with you. I'm going to tell you what, liberals don't love me.
Yeah.
I'm not a big lefty guy. I really am not. And I'm open about it. I don't believe in the philosophies they believe in, and their cultural mindset and value structure just doesn't align with mine. I think they're perfectly fine humans and that they have a place in the United States, and I don't wish them any ill will. But I believe in meritocracy. I don't believe in victimhood. I do believe that you have to hustle.
Yeah, it's two different schools of thought.
Two different schools of thought. So my point is not that they're wrong, but that those people tend to not gravitate towards me. So when people say, like, how do you get out of, how do you deal with hiring like the kind of woke zennials and younger generation people who like don't want to show up and say, hey, I'm only really interested in working 30 hours a week. I'm like, those people don't resonate when I have a video of myself deadlifting 465 pounds, with like Joe Rogan quote over the top of it.
Right.
Like, those people know I'm not their guy, right? They see that and they're like, I'm not the guy. And it's not so that kind of content is how I do recruiting. I do the same thing with my insurance business, right? I talked in a casual yet straightforward manner, and I let people know exactly what I wanted them to know and how they got a hold of me. And that what was important to us was that it was easy to do business with us, but at any given time, they could pick up the phone and talk to a human. That was my core value at Rogue Risk. We called it a human optimized agency. And so just what is your thing? Yeah. Are you into working with families? Are you into working with single dudes? Are you into working with single chicks, right? Isn't like 64% of women who are single under 40 own real estate now, or some crazy number like that?
Yep, you're right.
What's your market? Figure out who that market is. Hopefully it's a market that you live in and resonate with and aren't just trying to pretend, because people will smell that.
Yep.
And then just literally talk to those people. Just what are the things that are important to them? What are the things that are important to families? Dad jokes, kid jokes, husband-wife jokes, right? Like I saw this one the other day. It wasn't a real estate agent. I think it was a some sort of services business. And I thought it was a little risque, but it was also freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
It's that meme where like the guy walks past his wife while she's doing dishes, and then he stops and steps back and he like has to pat her butt. And then like every male movie guy like tips his hat. It's like hat tip, or like Christopher Walken like winks. You know what I mean? Because like every guy in the world who's ever been in the house with a female and you walk by and she's doing the dishes, like you can't help yourself.
Right.
And I don't mean that to be misogynist, and I'm sure you guys might get canceled for me saying that. It was on the internet. I'm just describing it. But then the guy like had some like little catchy thing for his business at the end of it. And I was like, I don't know that I would put that out there, because that's even maybe a step too far for me, but you got my attention, right?
One way.
Yeah. And people who resonate with that, right or wrong, right? Because that's going to turn a lot of people off.
Absolutely.
Right. Right or wrong. People who resonate with that and think that's funny or whatever, they're going to be like, this is my guy right here. Like I can walk into this guy's office and I can crack a joke and he's going to think it's funny. So whatever your thing is, you just have to find it. And then
finding your tribe. It's, you know, some people are going to align with the way you think. And that could be a customer, that could be an employee, whoever, fill in the blank. It's that be authentic, and people will gravitate you towards you. Because of that.
So I used to do a keynote back in 2015 called Already Sold. And the whole concept of it, and this was really around content warfare, was the idea that when we create content, the goal is not to interrupt people's lives. It's to give them a mechanism to choose us. And if we do that properly, when they actually reach out, they're done searching. Yep. They've already chosen to do business with you. Yeah. Right. So when someone called Rogue off our YouTube videos, they had most likely watched multiple YouTube videos. They'd been on our website. Yep. They double checked our social media, our Instagram, whatever. They picked up the phone and all they wanted to hear was, are these guys real? And as soon as they heard, you know, Zach or Sarah or Leslie, they would just go, okay, this is what I need, a workers' comp policy. Okay, great. Boom, boom, boom. Done. It was already done. Yeah. Like, because
deals already done. They're just confirming it.
We find that a lot with social proofing. Like,
yes,
if people look at your profile online and they see 100 Google reviews and all are kind of explaining around, we dealt with Mooney Insurance. They were so easy to deal with, and I would recommend my friends and family. They're reading that, they're going to see that, and they are pre-sold, and they're calling. Will they pick up? Oh, they picked up. Okay, here, write my insurance.
Right. Dude, I'm going to give you a great anecdote. You are 100% right. So back in the day, my very first job in insurance, I worked for a small retail agency that my ex-wife's family owned. So they were one of these agencies and many small businesses that, you know, stump the table. We're a referral-based business. We work on referrals, which I love, I also love poking people, because I say, well, you're also fucking lazy then, because
right.
You know, it's like the easiest way to write business.
Yep.
You should be writing referrals and doing other shit, but doesn't matter. They loved talking about how they worked on referrals. Okay, great. So we got X number of referrals. I can't remember the exact number now because it's been more than a decade, but I do know the percentage. So we had X number of referrals coming in. We'll call it 20 referrals a month. And they had this crappy postage stamp website from 1994 or whatever it was, 1996, that hadn't been updated in 20 years.
Wow.
And they had no Google reviews and no real social presence. And as I started to get more involved in the business and really get a liking and an interest in the social and digital side, I started fixing all that. So, you know, started getting Facebook reviews and built out just a standard LinkedIn company page and, you know, just had pages and got some images and
credibility.
Then in 2012, we redid the entire website in WordPress and made it nice and professional looking. And then we really focused on Google reviews, which would just come out. Okay. So just those simple things. We doubled in the first 6 months our referral rate. Now, why?
Wow.
Right? Because why did our referral rate double? It wasn't because we were asking for more referrals. It was because when someone gives a referral, right? You're on the golf course and Sean, you're bitching about your insurance agent. You know, he never calls me back, blah, blah, blah. And I go, you know, dude, I got these guys, Mooney. They're freaking good. And you should give them a call. I'll give them your number. And you go, great. And you give them your number. And then you play the rest of the round of golf. You probably forget. Or maybe you go to look, you don't really see anything. You're like, you know, what? I don't even know who these guys are.
There's no presence online. There's no.
Right. Now you go and you put in Mooney Insurance and you see this beautiful website. You see pictures of the people. You got 20 Google reviews that all look great. Social media shows some other clients and you're like, oh, I go to that liquor store and oh, that's cool. I like that bakery. Now you're like, fuck, I have to call these guys.
Yeah.
So now you call. So like even if you are strictly a referral-based business, it is imperative that you have at least a standard professional social and digital presence that tells
100%.
Your story and gives some feedback, because you will just get more referrals. Point blank, you will get more referrals.
Close more business, make more money.
Yeah.
Just call Langio. He'll get the website.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, that's my boy. Advisory Evolved is the balls.
I saw the video when he said, I'm going to bring him on stage. And you're like, huh? What does bring him on stage mean?
I know.
That's great.
That was the same one with the leatherback chairs. But that'll be saved for a different episode.
Yeah, here's a good
funny,
one.
Funny part about that. Sorry, last thing. Funny part about that speech. I was all fired up that day. So, sometimes you got a little extra gear. And I was talking, and I was like, I could tell I was getting a lot of head nods, but I could tell it wasn't like sinking in.
Yeah.
So I stopped for a second. It's like halfway through the video, and I'm like, guys, I hope you guys realize I'm coming for all of you. Like this, you live in this kumbaya world.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm giving you every secret I have, and I hope you use it and you come at me. But just so you know, I'm coming for all of you, and I won't hesitate to rewrite one of your pieces of business. That's why I'm giving you all the secrets in this presentation, because I'm also coming for your business. And you should have seen the boom, boom, like heads. It was like out of a gopher, a movie with gophers. All of a sudden, his heads.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Oh, it was hilarious.
Oh,
sorry,
dude.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's phenomenal.
He's from Delco too, so there's always the neighborly love. That,
all right, so here's a good one. So, and I can't take credit for this. So one thing about Sean and I that you don't know is I'm very much like glasses half full. I'm always half full guy. And Sean over here tends to be more of a Negadelphian, glasses half empty.
Okay.
So the question is, so you recently posted a video about how to make a video that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
So any tips for Sean and I about how to make a podcast that doesn't suck?
Yeah. So one, I just so the audience knows, I can't take full credit. The guy that I interviewed was phenomenal. His name's Steve Stockman, and he was really good. And obviously he's the expert. I know enough to know that he was not bullshitting in the things that he said. It was very, very good. So anyone who wants to deep dive, I highly recommend they do that. And they can go to the YouTube channel or podcast. They can listen to that episode. It was very good. But so with a podcast, there's a couple things. One, you have to be willing to have a take that people aren't going to hear other places.
Yep.
And this is the problem with a lot of podcasts that are insurance only right now. There's so many podcasts. Like when I first started, it was me and Jason Cass. That was it.
Yep.
We were the only two.
Oh.
I was the first one. He was the second one. That was it.
Would he
was
agree
for
with
like
that?
years. Yeah, he says he's the first, but he's crazy. He's absolutely out of his mind. He always says that, and I'm just like, bro, that's revisionist history. Whatever, it's all good. But within months of each other, it doesn't matter. It was the two of us for a long time.
Yeah, you owned it.
Now there's so many people, which is fine. I love that. I think if you want to share stuff, God bless you. However, it doesn't mean people are forced to listen. Sure. People are not forced to listen. And the best part about a highly competitive market like we have now with podcasts is that quite literally, you know how good you are by how many people listen. Yeah. If no one listens, you suck. If a lot of people listen, you're good. Okay. So to be good, which is subjective, you have to have takes that people haven't heard.
Yes.
Like you cannot just go up and go, what's your homeowner's referral strategy? Or, how many cold calls do you make every day?
Dude, I love this voice.
Like I'm like, this, I mean, literally, this is, I came up, someone interviewed me one time and God bless them. And I love it. And I won't say who they, but like, I show up and obviously like, I want your audience to know, one, how much I care, because I want them to get value from this. And two, I'm excited to be here and talk to you. I mean, I want that to be obvious.
Yep.
Literally, I show up and the person's like, so like, And I'm sitting there like,
you're like, let's go, man. What you got?
How about you just shut up and I'll talk and you can just publish this? Like, I was like, like, let's go. And it was like nothing. It was like 6 generic questions. So what was it like growing up in Albany? So you have me for 45 minutes on your fucking podcast. And your question for me is, what was it like to grow up in Albany, New York? It was terrible. It sucks here. What do you want? It's a fucking small town in the north. Like, we don't have a professional sports team.
Cold.
What? Well, yeah, it's cold. What else do you want to know? Like, I was like, that's really the question. I actually even think I said, like, I was like, I don't know that your audience wants to know the answer to this, but it was cold and boring. I don't know. Like, what do you want to know?
That's funny.
My point in saying that is, I think different formats are cool, changing up your formats. I think that, so I do a solo episode that I try to keep under 20 minutes on Mondays, and I do an interview on Thursdays. And when I get a little more bandwidth and run space, I'd love to add some more stuff in there. But I think you got to change up your formats, play with your formats a lot, short form, long form. I think that you have to have takes that people aren't going to hear other places.
Yeah.
And I do think that's why people come to my show. Now, I know I also turn a lot of people off. There are people who don't like my non-traditionalist views in the insurance industry. That's completely fine.
Yeah.
But the people that do come because, and I actually have been growing an audience of people, and I know this from feedback, who listen but don't agree with me.
All right, so there was sports radio down here. We have one of the all-time Philadelphia sports personalities, and he says, you know who it is? Eskin. So he said, I have 50% of the people listen to me because they like me and agree with me. And 50% of the people hate me and listen to me because they hate me.
Yeah, they don't. They dislike him so much.
And it's opinions and hot takes and
very opinionated.
And like them and hate them, but it was driving, ratings because both sides would listen.
Yeah. And here's the thing, man. Like, ESPN is obviously going into the shitter because it's been so genericized, right? Yep. Every show has to have a white person, a black person, a brown person, and someone who doesn't even know what sports are.
Yeah.
And every show has to have someone who likes the take and hates the company, or, and you're just like, it's
very cookie
what
cutter.
Happened? Yeah, like, give me an original thought. Like,
where's
I don't
the soul
care.
from when we were kids? When we used to wake up in like 3rd grade, you would watch it, and it was so exciting.
You couldn't wait to hear what
Berman.
Cool catchphrase they were going to have. Or, it was so good. And as soon as you genericize, people move away, right? It's just the way that it is. Totally. It's why no one watches mainstream media. It's why no one listens to ESPN. Frankly, it's why people are moving away from Disney, because it's predictable. It's completely predictable. Like, so you have to figure out what your thing is. I think the caveat to that is if you're news, I think you can have a news show, but I don't know that anyone is interested in like real estate or insurance news necessarily. But I do. So I think it's have an original take and cut it up, right? So like, I could see you guys doing like, and I don't know your show format, but I could see you doing like, one of you has a hot take 15 minutes on Monday. Someone has you do your interview on Wednesday, and then whoever did the hot take on Monday, on Friday, the other one like responds to it and takes like the opposite side. Like, that'd be a fucking dope format for you, right? That's and then you switch it up the next week. So then the next guy's got the Monday and the other's got the Friday, and you just flip flop. And then you're always kind of like pinning off each other, and you can pull other arguments in and be like, remember when I tore you up 2 weeks ago on that stupid take you had on this? And, and like, that's the kind of stuff I think people come for, that they're like, oh, I don't agree with that, but I'm really interested in how he got to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And because I think about that, like a guy for me in sports is Stephen A. Smith.
Philly guy.
I like some of his takes. I think some of his takes are atrocious.
Yeah.
But what I'm most interested in, and what I honestly believe he believes what he says.
Yep.
And 2, I'm always interested in how he got there.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you get
that opinion?
How'd you get to that opinion? Even if I think it's stupid, right? Like Josh Allen should have been the MVP of the NFL. To think that anyone else deserves it is bananas. By any regard, Lamar Jackson's season would have been a down year for Josh Allen. A down year. Like, we would have been talking about him like losing his freaking contract in Buffalo if he had Lamar Jackson stats. Yet Lamar Jackson wins his 2nd MVP. I don't understand how that works. I think it was basically they had picked him at the beginning of the season, since they started talking about him as the MVP in like week 7. So I think they kind of boxed themselves in. Okay. But like, but I'm interested in anyone who can make the case for Lamar other than he had the most wins.
Right.
He's not the best passer. He didn't score the most rushing touchdowns, even though he had the most rushing yards, right? Like his QBR wasn't the best. His completion percentage wasn't the best. He lost in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like,
build the case.
So talk to me about that. And I think whether you agree or disagree, that's what people come for. They want to know, I might not agree with the way you built your real estate agency, but I'm super interested in how you got there.
Yeah, no, I think, oh, that's such great advice. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And last thing we got for you is, what's your go-to quote? You have a go-to quote that you live by, that you love?
I have a few. I have two that I'm going to give you right now that are kind of taking up space in my head. One is, what you focus on is who you become. Yep. That's my own derivative of someone else's work, so I don't want to give myself 100% or credit for that, but that is one that I kind of came up with that I have it on my website. I say it to myself all the time. If you know what I mean? Like, if you sit on the couch all the time and eat chips, that's who you are. You're not a killer like salesperson. You're not a awesome this or whatever, you know. You're a person that sits on the couch and eats potato chips all the time.
Or if you surround yourself, like you are I forget what the quote is, but you are the
5 people.
Yeah, that you surround yourself with. Yeah,
and I think so. It's what are you focusing your mind on? Like, you want to have a better relationship with your spouse? Focus on it. It's that easy. Yep. Like, it's not going to get better if you don't focus on it. Yep. You want to be a better dad or better mom? Focus on it. Like, what you focus on is who you become. So I tell myself that all the time, because just like everybody else, one, I have hardcore ADHD, if that's not incredibly obvious. And two, I find myself just like everybody else. My mind will start spinning off on things that are just not important. Yep. And I just snap back to and say, hey, man, what you focus on is who you become. You don't want to be that person. Your mind's going there, but that's not who you are. Bring it back. Okay. Second quote, and this one is from Jordan Peterson. It's incredibly simple, but it's probably one of the most powerful quotes and concepts that I've come across. And I'm trying very hard to live my life this way, although I am highly imperfect. And it's simply, tell the truth. Tell the truth always. Just tell the truth. If you tell the truth, you live in reality. Yeah. If you don't tell the truth, then every other person in the world is responding to not reality. Your lives. So like, you know, and I found this with my people as a leader. So I'll take it to a business context. I am a natural people pleaser. So I would have employees that I would see potential in, but they would be screwing up. And I'd be like, ah, man, you're close. Or, yeah, you're almost there. Or, you know, whatever. In my mind, I'm like, the shit he's doing, he's never going to get there. Yep. But I would be nice. You know, I wouldn't tell him the truth. I would give him like this whitewashed version of what was happening. And finally, and this was a few years ago. It wasn't just in Rogue, but finally, I kind of hit this point where I was like, I heard Jordan Peterson do this whole tell the truth. He's got this whole keynote presentation or whatever you want to call his thing on telling the truth, which is phenomenal. You can find it on YouTube or a version on YouTube. And I like listened to him and the idea that the only way to live in reality is to tell the truth, because then people are reacting to what you actually believe and think and not some whitewashed version. So I just started saying to people, not in a mean way, but I'd be like, look, man, you told me your goal was 100,000 in premium a month. You're making 10 outbound calls a week. There is no way in reality to ever get to that number with that many calls. So you can either redo your numbers, we can let you go, or you can start making the calls you need to make to get to the number that you told me. But this is where we are. And maybe they don't like it. Maybe they do like it. Doesn't matter. But their reaction is real because I'm being honest with them, not whitewashing. Because, you know, everyone would be like, oh, we love you. You're such a good boss. Yeah. Except I wasn't getting as much production out of it as I wanted. It's because I wasn't telling the truth. So as soon as I started telling the truth, yes, there's a little more confrontation. People, you know, have a little more whatever, but everybody is operating in reality. And what I believe is over time, when people start to become accustomed to the fact that you tell the truth, they're not as shocked by it and they actually appreciate it in the long run.
Incredible advice.
Great stuff.
I love it. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. Greatly appreciate it. And really nice meeting you for the first time.
Yeah, you too, bud.
Super impressive. Why don't you briefly just tell people the best way to kind of reach out to you, find you, connect with you?
Yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the best social place. I do post a lot on Instagram too, but that tends to be more like Instagram's more like inspirational shit. Yeah. And LinkedIn tends to be more business stuff. So to pick your poison or both. And if you want to learn more about me, go to ryanhanley.com. And if anyone has any, this is going to be confusing, but if anyone has any questions or just wants to email me, my email address is actually different. It's ryan@findingpeak.com. So ryan@findingpeak.com for email. Just go to ryanhanley.com if you want to learn more about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And want to thank everyone for tuning in again to another episode of Bricks and Risk. See you soon. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Bricks and Risk. Our goal is that you walk away with 1 or 2 valuable nuggets, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us today. You can find all B&R episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.